This is Dan with 3D PT. For the gigantic Makey Makey board, I printed a couple of these arrows, one in conductive PLA from Protoprasa, which actually is mounted on the board now. This is in color fab. I think it's color fab PLA-PHA, and this is color fab copper fill. Now for this I'd have to cover it in aluminum foil to have it conduct on the board, and I did an experiment to see if this would work, as it's an 80% copper metal, but surprisingly this did not work with the Makey Makey set. So both these would be, so while this and the conductive one would be a good use, would be something you could do for your giant Makey Makey board, I've also wanted to test a new way to make small batch items with tool and die pressing. So a few other YouTubers like Stuff Made Here have actually used 3D printed parts to make tool and die sets. So with this I'm going to use some pop can material, which is pretty thin, pretty flexible. I'm going to cut it up, put it in here, and I'm going to see if I could press this into an arrow shape that would be mountable. So this is printed in color fab PLA economy, and it took about 7 hours to print this last night. So I just took this arrow design, made it into tool and dies, and I'll have a link in my Teacher Pay Teacher store to buy the files for this and the instructions. But some features of this is that it's a male and female die. It's got the holes here to align, and I'm just using some standard 1 1/4 inch bolt. But quick test, actually it's kind of snug, so I might just kind of freehand it. So what I'll do next is I'll take a couple cans out to the garage, cut them up with tin snips, and then use the vise to press this together. So first thing I'm going to do is just cut open this can using a pair of tin snips. So you also have to watch, because the rim here looks like it is bent over, and as I understand it, this is basically 2 parts here, so you'll have to trim off that as well. So once all that's trimmed, you'll have a nice flat piece. Now when I press this, I'm going to press it so it's shiny side up, and I think I'll do 2 tests, one where I just press on it, maybe put it between a couple of scrap 2x4s, and if that doesn't work, I'll put it in the vise. So I've started to, just pressing it like that has started to make the shape, but I'm not able to get any more pressure on, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in the vise. Right now what I'm noticing is if the boards are bowing a little bit, the pressure's not going to be applied evenly on the die, so you just have to kind of adjust as you go back and forth. But as you can see, it's definitely being pressed flat. So this extra little bit will get trimmed off. And I'll probably just go around and really press on every edge, because most of the force is being applied right here in the middle, not on the edge, so I'll have to rotate that around a few times. So first results are pretty promising. I think with this, though, these edges here are cutting off and causing the corners to split. So I'll probably have to round these over and probably make the male die a bit deeper, just so it makes better contact with the female end. But the fact that I was able to make a arrow-shaped button like this is promising, and I think in the future I could always do it with a thicker material like soup cans or something like that, but you know, you could already use this for something like decorations or buttons or covers or anything like that. So after I did this experiment where I just pressed it into these forms, the one thing I realized is that this was going to be really, really thin and wasn't going to hold its shape well if you press it. So I'll come back to this later as an idea for something to do. What I'll do instead is actually explore having it, get to focus, is have it wrap around a 3D print. So these are just normal arrows that I printed in ColorFab PLA, and you can see the rough idea of how it's going to look. I'll have to put a couple holes through this and bend it around, so I'll show you how to do that next. So to start with this, you'll need a 3D printed arrow and a pair of work gloves, as well as tin snips. And I have two kinds here, but I actually like this kind just because they cut a little better. So like before, I'm going to cut out a pop can. So put on a pair of work gloves. Start by cutting off the top here. Make sure you drain the can out, rinse it out real well. And when you cut it, you want to cut it below where the shoulder is here. then when you're done, you get a nice big sheet like this. So what people don't know about pop cans is that the inside is actually sprayed with a type of plastic. It's either urethane or some other plastic in different regions. That keeps the acidic sodas from eating into the metal and leaching that metal taste out. So to be really sure this conducts, I'm going to just take a sanding sponge and just rough that. So now once you rough up this area, this is going to be the exposed side that students will touch, and all the logos and everything could be hidden. It's up to you if you want to flip them around. Personally, this could be distracting, so I'm just going to focus on this side. Go ahead and take your arrow and a Sharpie, and you want to mark about an inch over from every side. So I'm going to mark here, mark an arrow out, and I'm going to put a 45-degree angle on every corner. That way I could actually cut a split there and use that to help fold over. And so this whole area here will get folded in. So I marked the line where it's going to get cut and the line that's going to bend around this form. And I'm not too worried if I get marker on this because this piece is going to be wrapped. So I'm going to cut the outer edge, cut those 45-degree slits, and then go on to the next step. So right here, you might have noticed I just made a mistake. If this shiny side is what faces out, I just marked it all with Sharpie. So I could come back later and I could clean it off with acetone. But I'll go ahead and just keep working on the first piece right now to show you the concept. And then I'll come back later with a cleaned up piece and do a clean version. Now that I have this set up, I could actually take it and wrap it around this piece. So I'll start from the back, work my way forward. So now that I have it roughly wrapped around, I'm going to use my press here, and I'm just going to press it all in place. Try and get it all pressed around. and there's still some rough spots here, so I'll have to take a minute, work those around. And since this one is my first experiment, I'm going to see if I could get these dots pressed into it by using this mold as a form. Actually, I might just use this to help me round this over. So if I go. Focus on that. I could then take the knife in this. Hopefully I could pop out stamp piece. So, probably did a little too much. Actually, might just use this as a form and just press the piece around it. But probably a little too much because it's already split here. So I'm going to, so this is the work in progress. I'm going to redo this with another piece. Mark the outside of the can, or I might need to even do that since I'll use this form and just press around and wrap it around that way. So working with the form is a little bit tricky. It's doable. I'm not going to try and punch it again because I'm already causing some cracks. So I just folded it over like this. And I'm just going to keep working it and fold different sides over. So you'll need a mallet. Get it nice and flat. And then you're going to fold all the edges so they're on the back side. And you'll probably have to make a couple cuts where the top of the arrows are. So I think if I do this and this, then I could trim off this little bit of an edge here. But it'll go all the way around, which is what I'll need to help with the contact. And no, tin snips aren't really meant for kind of precision work like this, but yeah, I'll make it work. I realized there's a problem in doing this, and it's right here where there's these sharp points on the arrows. It's causing a lot of splitting, and it's just making everything very hard to work around. So I'm going to, so I cut off the points on this plastic arrow here, and I'm going to reform it in this shape. This should be a lot easier to form around and work around. So it looks like my whole original idea of just straight copying the Makey Makey arrow keys wasn't just, it's not going to work with this kind of method. But since this is a much simpler shape here, it should be a lot easier just to wrap everything around once and form it. So back to the drawing board, but I'll revise this file and publish it on Teacher Pay Teachers. So this time when you do it, you want to place the piece with the holes for the buttons facing down. Since you want this to wrap around it, the label has to go up, like so. And it'll go like this. Alright, after some fiddling, I think I've settled on the way to work. You can actually still use this press. Carefully put it in, line it up, so it's all, and use it on this end. Get started, and do it on the point as well. So that'll get it started, and then you can take your piece there we go. Aha! So you could use this to actually pre-form. And now it's in a position like this where you can make some cuts and wrap it around. So I'm going to try and rethink how to do the cuts on this so I'm not making a big mess. And then the reason I put these two slots here on the die was so I could poke something in and get it out. But should be able to. I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board at this point because this actually was tight enough fit to actually cut the metal, which I guess would be good, but if I try and pull it out now, it actually formed around pretty well, so I can flatten this out a little bit and get this to work. I think if I just trim off those. I could then break the arrow around and hide it enough to keep it all together. So that's probably the best way to get this to form, is to use this, pre-start with this, and then hammer it around. And I'll have to play around with it a little bit more, but you can see this here. So overall, this is going to be part one of this experiment. Using this tool and die worked okay. Having these sharp points here made life a lot harder, so the two that came out okay look something like this. So definitely not any sort of passable quality you'd want in a classroom. This ended up being just a smidge too long in here, so I'm going to redo this die. And in a second video, I'll come back and show you guys the experiments, the results from that. So if you like what you see, like, comment, and subscribe. And keep an eye out on this channel. I'll have some time during the summer to do more videos. So just keep an eye out for that.